And you wanna do roll call?
I will do roll. Chair Christensen? Here. Vice Chair Henderson?
Here.
Board Member Brijak?
Here.
Board Member Areno?
Here.
Board Member Rychecki?
Here.
We have a quorum.
So do we need to go ahead and approve the agenda?
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a motion for that?
You don't need a motion.
Okay, good.
Chair, you can do that presidentially,
Okay.
as long as nobody has any changes.
If anybody doesn't have any changes, we'll go ahead and approve these. Okay, so now we want to do the minutes from our last meeting, January 9th, 2020. Anybody have any changes, amendments to it? A chance to look at it?
I move to approve the minutes from the January 29th meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion is, I'm not very good at this. The motion has been made and seconded, so all those in favor signify by saying
I'd like to amend
aye. Okay,
under public appearance, just to give some context, we just have names and we generally put some kind of a summarize what they've said. And I would like to add in there for Jeannie, she stated that she had watched, and Colleen, this passes, I've got it written down so I can give it to you. She watched the city council study session discussion about dissolving LIFT. Urban renewal was not done in the normal way. There was never a project. She thanked the LIFT members for their service. Linda Kay, she did not address us about the subject of urban renewal, so I have left that blank. And then Pam Chadbourne said urban renewal was supposed to have a project, and the Columbine Square plan did not have one. The task was impossible. I'd like to move to amend to add those statements after each of the two names.
there's, okay, we got that. So it's been moved and seconded to amend the minutes. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, I guess that's all. Okay, now the minutes have been amended, can we have a vote on the full minutes? We need another motion.
No, you don't.
Just all those in favor say signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I can talk and be in really good shape. But I'm not good at it. Okay, so do we have any announcements? We don't have any public appearances? Okay, so we'll move into financial report. That's up to Tiffany.
Good evening. In your packet, you do have the October, November, and December monthly financial statements. As in the past, I'll just kind of highlight what has changed. I believe the last discussion we had was September 30th, 2019. I'll fast forward to December 31st, 2019. And the only change in the cash balance in those 3 months is interest earnings. And that was interest earnings of $1,741.92. So at the end of December 31st, 2019, the amount of cash held is $429,481.23. There are, just so you're aware, there are a few checks that were issued this month to pay some invoices that came in the last couple of months. So January and February, you will likely see a change in the cash balance.
One of those checks was from our council,
Yes.
and that will close out his account.
That is, as long as there aren't any more invoices, then yes. So I'm prepared to answer any questions that you might have on the financials. Cash balance is what it was at December 31st, 2019, so.
How long will it take us to liquidate these accounts transferred to the city?
So I think that's gonna depend on some discussion this evening to determine timing of potential loan repayment or any TIF increment that might wanna be refunded. We do have a limitation related to the county. I did reach out to them and they're not able to stop any property tax collections for this year because they were assessed in 2019 and they're being collected. The last payment that's due on those is July, or I believe June 30th, which means the last payment of collections will come to lift in July, probably mid to late July. The one issue that we need to address, maybe internally or something, is there are a couple of delinquent amounts on some prior property taxes that have not been paid. So we'll need to address how we're gonna handle that, cause those could essentially come in this year, 2021, 2022, just kind of depending on that. The amount is negligible, very negligible, so I think we will be able to accommodate some agreement for that.
And Tiffany, this seems obvious, but I wanted to ask it anyway. You're able to, you can clearly tell if we want to make that refund, you can tell exactly how much came in from the different taxing bodies so that we can refund the exact amount and so.
Yes, we have that information for prior years, so the amount that's being held currently, it's a little over $1,000. We have that information of how much should be refunded to those taxing entities. It's gonna be what is received this year. One thing that kind of changed in December is the county sent out assessments, preliminary assessments in August, and there was no foreseen increment for Columbine Square. However, when the final came in at the very end of November 28th, I believe, there were some adjustments made. So there's actually about $1,000, I estimated 900, it's gonna be about $1,000 that's gonna come in this year for increment for Columbine as well. So we won't know that amount until it's actually paid. And that's why we have to wait until after July till we get that last payment to determine what needs to be refunded from those amounts.
Excuse me,
Does that make sense?
could we not assign it to the city and forget it?
Are you referring to the property tax that would come in?
Yeah, payments coming in.
That is an option, maybe we can,
Cause it seems to me that would be a good way to shut this thing down much faster.
I think
Sign it off.
part of it as it relates to that assignment is regardless, right now, I think Lyft has approximately 21,000 that's appropriated for 2020 expenses. So you're able to issue checks in that regard. At the end of the day, or at the end of, in July, at some point, there's gonna need to be a budget amendment to get rid of, I guess, those remaining funds that currently are appropriated to Lyft to handle those, to those expenses. So at some point, you're going to need to meet again, most likely in July, after you're aware of what those property taxes. I don't know if we're necessarily removing any steps that are gonna need to happen anyways. If that makes sense,
I'm just trying to accelerate this process.
right?
And the other thing is with the delinquent money coming in, you know, I always know that people pay late. And it just seems to me that we should be prepared to assign it and shut this thing down. And so my question is there a way that one governmental entity can assign? Because it's done in private practice all the time.
Sure, and one of the thoughts, and it gets a little bit more complicated, but I think what we're believing the delinquent amounts are, and when Ms. Hooten says negligible, we're talking, I think it's $2. It's $2 that may be coming to Lyft, who knows, next year, the year after. Is it worth forming like an IGA? I mean, one of the other more complicated things is, you know, is it worth drafting an agreement for that assignment, going through an IGA process, because it technically would be some sort of intergovernmental type agreement to remit $2, or do we just take that as, we don't really really care about the $2. It ultimately goes to the county as abandoned property and
Yeah.
off we go. We can maybe take a collection at the end of the night.
I think that's up to the city. If they
We'll
think
pay
there's
it
gonna be more
forward.
money than, and they want it assigned, then we'll sign it to them.
Discussion that we need to
Yeah.
evaluate how the best way to accommodate that. But obviously, it wouldn't make sense for me to draft an agreement and then for you to have to share it with your council. It would end up costing a lot more
More than
than
the
the $2 that we're looking to gain out of this. Necessarily my decision.
Is there any possibility that there could be more than the $2? Or is that something you're 100% sure that to expect? It's not, whatever, even if it's $3, I mean,
Yeah.
we're still,
No, I'm fairly confident that's the amount. There may be a
Okay.
little bit of interest, a
okay.
few cents worth of interest, but according to the records we got yesterday from the county, it's only at $2. Now there can be some that didn't pay this year that might add to it, but
And just so I understand, are you saying that we do not have to have a budget amendment to make decisions to return money and at this point? So if we decided to return some increment this evening, would
Oh.
we need to amend the budget
Yes.
through a two-step process?
a one step, yes, it'd just be a one reading, cause it's by resolution. Yes, if you were to decide to repay the loan, or if you wanted to return some of the prior 3 URAs increment, you would have to amend the budget, and in order to do that, we would have to advertise. We're required to at least publish it once in the paper, and so it would have to be on the next meeting potentially. But I could draft up a budget amendment if that's the desire, if that's the direction that you'd like to go.
So what would happen if we didn't pay back the stuff? Just paid back the loan and kept the money? The city can't get it, right? Wait, I read that at Littleton Independent tonight, and it just sounded like it was so easy for us to just give the money back to the city. And now I'm hearing, well, we have to give back the loan money, but we don't have to give back the increment, is that correct?
Oh, no, you do have to give back the increment. But there's a formal process to amend the budget to do that.
Let's go right into new business. And we were gonna have a discussion about city council did on February 4th, 2020. I think everybody knows that
Yeah.
they went ahead and voted to dissolve the, as we expected they would.
Yeah, vote of 6-1, the city council voted to repeal the Columbine Square renewal area and to disband LIFT. As we've discussed before, as part of that kind of winding down provision in state law, it can't be LIFT couldn't be disbanded. There would have to be a determination that you had adequate funding, which you do, to repay your obligations. Obviously, you have $429,000. You have approximately $155,000 in obligations, i.e. that loan agreement to the city, give or take a few $1,000. So you had enough finances for them to make that finding. So the 6-month wind down provision is obviously to finish up the financial affairs. As we've already discussed, there is gonna need to be a budget amendment to repay those amounts, whether it's the amount that's been retained in TIF or those amounts, whatever amounts are left from the loan that had been extended by the city. And so, not to repeat Tiffany, although if I repeat her, I'll sound smart. So, that's one of the things that has to happen. From the time that council voted, there wasn't enough time to publish any of the financial information for a budget amendment to occur tonight. Certainly we can get that direction, and Tiffany will get all the numbers ready so that can occur at the next meeting. That will obviously be up to LIFT in terms of when you all decide to reconvene on your next regular business meeting. There are some kind of administrative tasks that will have to happen between now and I guess the formal dissolution date would be August 13th. So when council passes an ordinance, it's usually about 9 days before it takes effect, so it actually takes effect today. Which would be 9 days from the 4th. So I think the official wind down date for Lyft is August 13th. The county, as you know, will be remitting the 2019 property taxes to Lyft, and then a budget amendment will have to happen in July, I'm assuming. Obviously, the board can meet whenever they want to prior to that August 13th date to do that budget amendment. And then issue those checks out to the other taxing authorities. As well as repay whatever amounts that Lyft has in its accounts back to the city. As far as next steps, one of the things that I've kind of been pondering and I had a conversation with the mayor about was in our interim city clerk was the board member lineup. I know that there are some terms that are coming up. And I know that there has been, at least in our conversation, I've been asked, well, what do I feel that the board's commitment is? And I've told them that I thought the board was committed to finish out the obligations, through August. And so if that's not the case, as we're doing appointments to boards, I know that some have interest in continuing. I know that some may not have an interest in continuing. I'm trying to get a gauge for what that is. Because I think, Jason, you're up.
In March?
Your term's up in March.
I mean, I can be a caretaker, I don't, it doesn't sound like it's gonna take much.
Right, I just, I don't wanna assume anything, and so if someone was content and having their term run out and they're done, then okay, that's something that I need to let our city council know so that they can fill those seats, but I told them that was my impression that everyone was committed to filling out their terms, and if your term was extended, say for the duration of, till August 13th, I'm just kind of looking for affirmation.
I've got an interview scheduled for
Okay.
February 26th,
Okay.
I think.
Chelsea, there's kind of a machine back there.
Oh,
I
okay,
can
I've
hardly hear
got an interview scheduled to continue my term. That said, if there was an extension of my term, that's fine too, but whatever works, I'm planning on remaining.
Our terms are actually different from the other boards and commissions.
Correct.
They ended, what, 5th of January, something like that. It's off. But the law says if someone does not, is not replaced, then they get, their term just continues. So I'm wondering if we can just, if Jerry would be amenable to just allowing the Lyft board to function the way that we've been without going through any kind of a process, knowing that we're supposed to serve until we're replaced. And I don't know how the rest of everybody feels about functioning with 6 rather than 7. It doesn't seem all that. I mean, to assign somebody to come to a couple of meetings doesn't seem quite right.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem right, and I think that most of us, at least I'm committed to just seeing it out. Going to August 13th, so if there's somebody here who doesn't wanna do that, then I guess we go with 5 and not 6. I mean, at some point, we can't just have like 3 people. But if we can maintain with the 6 that we have, I think that would be the best thing to have.
And this wouldn't preclude you from, well, I guess it would be a discussion for our city council, but I guess the sense that I'm getting is, if you've applied for another board and, you can continue to serve on this one and finish it out. And, if you were appointed to a different one, I don't think that, obviously I don't speak for council, but my understanding is that probably would not be much of an issue for you.
I think, as I understand it, everybody's looking at this as kind of a caretaker. We're gonna have to meet a couple times just to approve some budget stuff. I don't even see these as being very long meetings, so if they're amenable, it's probably easiest if we just sort of write it out. But it's the council's call, you know.
I'm gonna meet with the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem tomorrow, and so I just wanted to give him my feel for it, reconfirm what I had already stated to council on February 4th. It was my impression.
I don't speak for everybody, but is everybody just making, staying until everything is taken care of? We won't have to meet that many times, I can't imagine.
Well, it sounds like we might only need to meet once. If I understand correctly, we
Twice.
Well, we'll have to have at least twice, and then something at the very end.
Yeah, I would say if you wanted to meet, you know, at your next regular meeting, that's when we would have the budget amendment ready for you. You could start remitting some of those monies back to the city and the other taxing authorities that are being held. And then probably that last meeting after the state or the county has given those final property taxes, that'll be the final budget amendment. There's kind of some administrative paperwork in terms of you know, a dissolution filing that the chairperson could probably sign, but obviously would probably be a vote if you wanted to do that sooner than August 13th, but some administrative stuff like that. I know that the city itself needs to send something to the county, letting them know that we've repealed the urban renewal area so that they don't collect any more property taxes for 2020. And I think that's all that I foresee in terms of needing to happen. In terms of kind of those next steps. I don't know if Tiffany has anything that I'm missing.
Is there any decision you need from us as far as the budget amendment? Is like, before we leave here tonight, is there anything that you need from us as far as direction goes?
Yeah, so if you would like to repay the loan, or if you'd like to repay any of the tax increment, I would need direction from you to prepare a budget amendment, and then we would advertise for that amendment for the next meeting, if you wanna do that.
And how do we do that? Do we,
I think we ought to have a discussion, and I think the more we can do on this front end,
I
the better
agree.
off, yeah. So
Yeah.
if we return the sales tax increment for the two previously repealed areas, the loan and the interest and any increment from previous years on the Columbine Square, then that would just leave us with the current increment and current expenses. And with that current, I haven't done the math, but with the current increment cover,
Potential expenditures,
Mm-hmm.
it depends on if you have any attorneys involved, I think.
well, we've got the sales tax interest for Columbine, that would be more than covered.
The interest from,
The sales tax increment from Columbine Square
yeah,
is enough to cover anything
Yes.
that we might encounter. So if we, the North Broadway, Milton Boulevard, sales tax returned, the loan, the interest, and the increment from Columbine Square, including property and sales tax for the previous years, would leave us with a substantial amount of money to function and then return all of that in the end.
yes, you could do that. I think there would be
That's
plenty.
what I would suggest.
So, and Tiffany has the numbers. So from the three previous URAs, there's 134,998, $134,998. If we're taking the loan plus interest, that's, if we're taking, you can tell me I'm wrong, 155,000. Oh, she's got the calculator out. Only about 155,000, and then there is that sales tax increment that has been being generated from the Columbine Square that's also a part. of what Lyft is holding.
So can I make a suggestion maybe? So if you wanna refund the 134,998, that's the 3 URAs, the sales tax increment from the 3 prior URAs. And if you wanna repay the loan, the 154,443.75, that's 289,441.75. And that would leave you $140,039 roughly.
Am I understanding correctly the way that we're doing this is we're repaying, we're making those refunds, and then we're supposed to sit on the balance for the balance of the 6 months, I suppose. And then do a second amendment just to make sure there's any more commitments at that point,
Yes,
and then zero it out.
yes.
Okay.
Or to sit on the balance.
So you could opt to maybe keep $10,000 and refund the rest as to the city as part of the sales tax increment that's been collected on Columbine, what's left.
Mhm.
So that's an option too, if you wanted to do that now.
Just keeping around this 10, just to take care of any commitments might come in,
Right.
bills, whatever.
Yep.
What do you guys, with the goal being let's zero out our balance as soon as possible, what do you guys think is the best way to move forward? Would that second option be the best? I mean,
Yeah, I think we should just move forward as quickly as we can to
yeah, sure.
refund it, to the city and.
So it almost becomes an easy direction for you, which is figure out a way to leave us with 10 grand.
And then amend the
Come
rest.
back, with a suggested budget that does that.
Yep. That would be easiest, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think that would afford you enough money in case there were attorney fees or filing fees or anything with the
Sure.
state or anything. Then the other piece, so for the Columbine property taxes that have been collected previously, about $1,000. I would suggest that you wait until you collect the Columbine for this year. So you have one bucket of 2,000 and then you refund that to the taxing entities in August. And the only reason I suggest that is there's fees involved to refund them now versus then. And if you just do it all at once with one final letter, I think that would probably be best, honestly.
Is there, how does this work? Do we give you direction, do we have to vote or is it just a conversation? I mean, do we have to vote on the direction that we give to Tiffany?
No, I think we just give
No, you're not
direction.
taking any action, you just tell me and
You're gonna come back with a
You're gonna
proposal,
come back
right?
with a
Then you'll
Yeah.
vote on it.
then you'll vote on it.
Okay.
Then we can.
So
Yeah.
we would have the first reading for the budget change.
So there's not a first and second reading, it's one public hearing, because it's by resolution.
Okay.
Okay, so if we met next month, we would have the budget.
Mhm.
We would just advertise it, have the budget, and then be able to make a motion to approve it. And then we would just need to come back in probably July,
August,
August, and then zero everything.
and zero it out, yep. And we'll do a budget amendment at that time to disperse the remaining funds.
Do we need to notify the state as well? That we're dissolving, if the state gets notified who the members are, it would seem to me they would wanna know that we no longer are breathing.
Isn't that part of the dissolution notice?
Yeah, we'll work on the dissolution notice. I don't know if it just goes to the county or both to the county and the state, letting them know.
And one other thing that I thought might be something that we should consider doing is sending a notice to all the property owners in the Columbine Urban Renewal Plan area and let them know that the plan's been repealed, just as a courtesy.
I wonder if there's an easy way to do that, I wonder if there's an easy way to do that so we didn't have to send out letters to every property owner?
There's just a handful.
Okay, so that would be,
relatively easy. It actually could be something council, council took the action. Maybe we could suggest that council do it.
Trying to remember.
I'll run that by the the city manager. And I mean, that is a council action to repeal the urban renewal area. It's not really a lift action to repeal the area. So that sort of notification or whatever notification would probably fall on the city
Yeah.
to do that. So let me talk with Mr. Ralph and get his direction as to if that's something he wants us to do.
So Tiffany, Reed, do you have anything else?
I don't have anything
Everything?
else.
Any of the board members have any questions or comments or?
I just wanna say thank you to Tiffany and Reed for your patience and attention to detail and everything. Thank you.
Not rid of us yet.
No, but this is a painful process that sounds a lot like hospice care. So it's so thank you very much. Thank you.
I move we adjourn.
I don't think we have to make.
You
a
don't
motion
have to
second
to adjourn.
We
You
can
don't
just-
have to have a second to adjourn, but you need a motion, unless you do it yourself.
No, I don't think we need one, I think
Well,
we
if
need
the chair does it, you don't need a motion.
Yeah.
I'll just
Okay.
start running, will
Then-
that'll destroy our quorum.
The meeting is adjourned.